friends are also here. First of all, I want to thank to our fine organizers that made this event possible and give us great time to enjoy exchanging experiences and socialize and everything else. So we actually may continue. This joke was specifically made for Mr. Schnitzel, but however we are not going to do that today, maybe sometime in the future. Today we are going to talk about BOA, that is short for Barracuda Octopus Agile, or how to run a web server like pro on cheap. Here is some of my technical background. As a common question, when I started, in around 2005, I started to play with web technologies. In 2007, I landed on a Drupal heaven, so to say. I'm trying to make things in this timetable, so we're going to talk about how do we begin with Drupal, why do we wish to work with Agile, and then we will have time to ask some questions, and if there's anything you would like to know more, we can maybe socialize after that. So everything is, this is the John Cleese actually from the Ministry of City Walk, and those who try to survive the shared costing thing, they definitely know what the sharing costing is. The truth is, not all hostings are the same. What we actually need to successfully run Drupal, there are some things like we really need Linux, we really need at least some sort of web server. It may be Apache, it may be Nginx. There are also others like Light at VBD and some less popular. We surely need PHP installed on server, MySQL. Usually we have to have some kind of access like FTP or SSH. And not all hostings provide all the resources. Usually they advertise themselves as unlimited everything. And one may say, wow, that's fine, I have unlimited disk, I have unlimited transfer, unlimited domains, unlimited databases, even unlimited users that you can assign some site to, and you may think it's fantastic. But it's not just like that. Usually sharing hosting has overselling, so you're quite limited with the CPU, with memory, with the database. You usually don't have APC caching or off-cache, it's PHP caching technologies. You usually don't have or cannot install additionally some PHP things like upload progressing, debug, and definitely usually on shared hosting you cannot tweak things. I mean, if it's shared hosting, so you're kind of like a guest in a hotel that cannot change paint of the walls or kitchen or anything else. I've been with Dreamhost for a lot of time, and really the good thing about it is users that are unlimited. I raised the memory with HT access. Database is horror, don't ask about it. I managed to add opcache. Also managed to add APC, compiled it by myself, made my own PHP. That is a very strange policy for the shared hosting, but I did manage that. I've added also PHP extra stuff, and I tweaked it. But still, you cannot do anything. And the main problem with Dreamhost or any else shared hosting that seems to work fine for you is that you're hitting limits. Your database usually crawls, and if it does not crawl, then it's expensive shared hosting, and if it's expensive shared hosting, then you're hitting some questions like if it is a viable solution for you. The question of the viable solution actually quite depends on what are you trying to do. So what I was trying to do is shared hosting usually costs around $10 a month. For $10 a month you get various things, but shared hosting used to cost that not too long time ago. When we are evaluating what Drupal hosting options do we have, for instance, shared hosting. Yes, that's my favorite one. Don't assume anything or assume nothing. Why it is important? That is because when you read the home page, when you're reading the specification, always everything is as fine as it can be. So everyone offers you everything is included, you don't have to care about. And after a month, then you see that something is not working, that maybe it's oversold, and some other things to do. So these are some kind of important questions that you need to answer yourself before you dive into any kind of a search for a solution. So everything depends on what you actually need. So if you're running like one website for a small shop in your neighborhood, I mean, I'm not into it, how much would you earn from such a site? You know, there are quite legitimate businesses built around producing small sites that actually cost little to nothing. And there was even a case study with the question, can you live with a $100 built site? And the question is yes, but you have to have a lot of them. So basically what is important to you, the first thing that you think about what do you need are these questions that you have to answer for yourself, not before your client or anything else, but you must know at least what do you need, because you cannot have everything in a budget that suits you. It depends on the market. Market is offering various things. So the baseline at the end of the day is the word budget. Unfortunately, it's just there in the middle, but the budget, I mean, everything is important of these things. So you have to exactly know what do you need. If you need proximity, for instance, you live in Europe, having a web server in the USA just gives you a longer time to transfer anything. Sure, the time difference is small, but still it affects the performance, it affects other things. So you want some sort of proximity. Security, maintenance, performance. That is the first thing that the client wishes to know. I mean, client doesn't know that he wishes to know that. But in a month or two, that could be raised as a problem. So you have to think in advance. Why? Any kind of solution you try to implement that really affects what you actually going to do in a half of a year or a year. Because you can face real problem. For instance, you have 20 sites. It's not much, it's not little, it's something like you're starting your company, you're offering services, you're trying to build a business. Trying to move 20 sites is a lot of them. It's a big job. I mean, you have to think about the DNS, you have to think about database, you have to test it and everything else. So no one likes to shift from server to server like it's nothing, because it is something. So you don't want to mess with that too much. So what I've done, I performed some testing. So I tested if VPS or virtual private server is that solution for me. Fortunately, Amazon gives you a 1-year option to test their micro instance. Because I'm kind of the guy who first read the small print, I was some kind of horrified. if you transfer this, then we will charge you like that. If your CPU goes over, then we will charge you like that. So if you're testing Amazon Web Services free tier micro instance, you have to keep in mind the following thing. It is free unless you hit the limit. If you go above the limit, they will charge you. I mean, it is free, but it's up to you to see if you're above the limit or below the limit. I've hit the limit a few times because I was building the server over and over and over and over again, and I was repeating that with various operating system, various configurations, because I was testing it. So I stressed that little instance quite a bit, but the bill at the end of the month was something like $2, $3. I mean, above what was offered in the free tier. So it was like a so-so experience. I mean, it did offer much better, much improved performance than the shared hosting, than any shared hosting I've tested. But still, I didn't felt quite, one CPU is one slice of the CPU in some virtual world of theirs. 1 gigabyte is barely enough for the things if you want to do it seriously. And 30 gigabytes, well, that depends. 30 gigabytes actually is quite enough if you don't have too much media, but that's the problem. Many people like to post their blogs with the 5 megabyte pictures. Of course, you can do it in Drupal, you can downsize it, but then they would say, but I would not like it downsized. You may downsize it to show me on the screen, but I want to have the full resolution. And these 30 gigabytes, I had, for instance, few clients, 3 of them, that posted a lot of pictures, and I hit the wall very soon. So, looking at the options I was offered, I mean, I checked various VPS solutions. I finally set up on DigitalOcean. Not recommending them. You all know there are many others, and you have probably also everyone heard of DigitalOcean. Actually, they're quite fine. They're offering these plans, and still they do. And what they say is their most popular plan really is the most popular plan. I mean, for $10, I get my own server, my own operating system, so I can tweak it as much as I want. I can add services, optimizations. I've ran various things on it. That actually didn't fit into 1 gigabyte, but I gave up on Apache Solr, and it did fit well. So it ran about 10 production sites, not too much visited, really. It was on Agir, of course. And this proved as okay. So if you wish to run on cheap, this is the substitution for the one-on-one for the shared hosting, because it simply works. This is the kind of instance I choose to build. You may choose different distributions of Linux. You may go 32-bit or 64-bit, but that choice is quite easy, because if you're not using more than 4 gigabytes of memory, you don't need 64 bits. Why is this important? That is important because really, depending on whether are you 32-bit or 64-bit, that affects how much memory you will be using. So, if you're running on cheap, if you're 1 gigabyte instance to have, then you should probably go 32-bit, because your memory footprint will be smaller, actually. This is kind of an offering that DigitalOcean offers. So you can choose between systems. If you're going to use Barracuda, then you have to choose Debian. maybe others will work as well, but it is tested on the Debian, so Debian works quite well, and I choose Debian 7 and 32 bits. I could choose others, but didn't feel like. So, what is the big thing about Egir, and specifically about Barracuda and Octopus? Barracuda and Octopus are actually scripts that are ran inside the terminal. So they just enable you to build a server, no questions asked. I mean, I'm lying about this, but let's assume no questions asked. So as soon as you put just 2 commands, you're done. You have the server that is up and running. He builds Nginx server. He builds MySQL, he builds PHP, he optimizes, I mean the script, it optimizes PHP, it uses Redis for the speed up of the database access. You may choose to use Solr for search. That's all configured in the configuration file. So it's all done for you. You don't have to actually think too much. Basically, when you're building the BOA, that is Barracuda, Octopus, Egir, these are the only requirements. First and foremost, you have to have wget. Debian has it. It has to have open port. Some VPS hosting companies are just closing all the ports, and you have to specifically ask, please open that port. This port is not essential, but it helps because it enables the system to pull everything from the various Gits, and it must be open because Barracuda is updating based on Git. So we really need that. SMTP, it is important for receiving the messages from the server. Interestingly enough, there is one hosting company, Trans IP, that's based in Holland. They have a quite nice offering, and I was thinking about for a little more money, like $20 a month, 20 euros a month actually. They offer you 4 gigabytes of RAM, 150 gigabytes of SSD drives, and that sounds quite good. You know, it's 20 euros. So it's not 10 bucks like DigitalOcean, it's 20 euros. But still, I just didn't manage to ask them to open me SMTP. They just required me to build a mail server. Although I said I will not have a mail server, I just need a service for myself, not for the clients. But still, they refused to do that, and I was forced to look for some other solutions. The thing that you actually do need is, this is a nice thing to have, but it's not important, of course, but you actually do need basic sysadmin skills and experience, because you just need to know how to type some commands in terminal. And that's it where we have some kind of a decision. If someone is asking oneself, so if you're asking yourself, am I ready for this? The only thing actually you're asking yourself is, do you know how to use command line, and do you feel comfortable about that? So if you're not feeling comfortable about that, then some other things you may follow. Type this, you're done. But sometimes some operations come up, and if you're not feeling comfortable with the terminal, then it's probably not for you. So what are the other solutions? Like we saw in a day presentation, we have platform.sh, we have Acquia. It's not cheap, but there is a reason why it is not cheap. There is Pantone, and there is Omega 8cc, and that is the company who is owned by two guys who are actually writing this BOA in a friendly spirit of open source, and so what they base their own business on, they're just giving it to you. So you may use it. No strings attached. It's on GitHub, so you may use it or you may not. And even there is some sort of community support, and they're active in a community. This is how it goes. You don't run installer as sudo. Why? Because when you install the system, for instance in DigitalOcean, you supply the key and you're the root. So the first thing is you log on to your new instance with a SSH root at my server. You don't need to do anything. So as soon as your minimal system is on and operational, the only thing you should do are this: cd, so you go to home, you get the scripts from the agir.cc files, like this, and you type bash boa shell txt. That way, your system is fetching the scripts. The scripts are in their own folder, made executable, and you're ready to go. So, this is the first step. The second needed step is this. On this second step, you can, but you are not forced to make changes in barcoded file and octopus file. Actually, you don't have to do that at all. The recommended way is to, after you type this and get your system prepared, the first next thing is you type BOA, instable, public, your domain, your email, and this is the Octopus user. What does this all mean? BOA is just the name of the script or the command that glues everything. That everything is two actions. One action is Barracuda, the other action is Octopus. This is this instable chooses, are you using the head version, which is the latest, but it's in development, or you're using instable. Of course, you want to use stable version for your production server. Public, that means the BOA script can install BOA as your own development version on your local computer or in some local virtual machine instances, Vagrant or whatever. If you say it public, then it will be production ready. And of course, if you do have the server, then you should have some sort of the name for the server, and that's it. And you should have some mail where the server will return you information. And the last thing is Octopus user. By default, you don't have to type this. By default, it is O1, like Octopus 1, short for just O1. When you put those scripts, they work a lot like blah 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 blah. You have a lot like reports of fetching, building, producing, setting up, getting new things, and when that's all finished, it says, okay, I'm done. From that point on, you just may, I will have to get out of the keynote just to show you. So once you finish, you just point your server to the domain name you choose. So this is mine, o1.dx.rs, and it gives you the agir. You get the password on your mail. You just click the not to pass the link. You just click the link and it gets you into the system. So this is the system. How is the system organized? Barracuda is actually a script that builds server. Barracuda as itself has nothing to do with Drupal. So Barracuda just builds. The second thing that happens is Octopus instances. Why is that important? You may have few servers, for instance, one in Europe, one in USA, one in Japan. You're building business on it, right? Then in each server, you may have Octopus instances. So you have Octopus 1, Octopus 2, and each Octopus instance may have its own websites and the users that own those websites. So from this, you can see that it's a really huge system, and it is that huge that you can build a business just like Omega did for themselves. One instance can be announced as a master, and that instance can control other instances. For instance, you can pull the site from the USA into the Europe, or pull it back into the Japan, or wherever you want. So that is the background. I mean, we can talk a lot about how it actually functions, but in the end, it all comes down to this. What is this actually? This is one or first or most important page of the administration for your Octopus instance. These are called the platforms. So in platforms, you have, of course you can recognize the distribution like AGOV, like Commerce, of course, maybe even there's some Drupal, why not? Here is Drupal 6, Drupal 7, and there are many more. For instance, such popular as, for instance, you may use Airpal, like enterprise resource planning. There is a Gardener, there is Open Academy, Open Atrium, Open Blog, Open Church, there is a Panoply. There are about maybe 15, 20 different distributions that are ready for you. So you have actually three choices. You may use Drupal as a Drupal, plain, just as it is. You may base your site on some of the distributions, and you also may build your own platform, like this one. For instance, this is the site that I've done long time ago for my friend, and when I needed to migrate it into the Agir, I found that it had some modules, it had some overrides and something, and I didn't want to bother. So I just took the whole my Drupal installation, I took it to one folder, and say to Agir, look, I have a new platform. Said, okay, where is it? You put the name, you put some data, and then he goes through the process that is called verifying. What does it mean, verifying? It is verifying that permissions are right, files are there, and everything is as it should be. I mean, this is a really complex system, but really works well. I could really talk for a long time, and still some time has passed between this picturing and everything else, so I'll try to keep it short. The basic idea with the platforms is, I mean, you've done Drupal multi-site, right? You know how it's functioning. So you have the site folder, and inside folder you have different sites, and you may have in sites all, you may have modules that are shared among all sites, and then again in each site, so in the distribution, in the site, you may have modules that override the previous one. So if you've done a multi-site, that is actually all you need to know. So everything is structured in that way. So you have something like folder with the distributions. Inside each distribution you have sites. In the folder sites you have all the sites that are inside that platform, and that's about it. So we come to the second question. This is how it's organized. But the question is, okay, but how am I supposed to, for instance, you know, when you run a Drupal multi-site, then you know how you do your upgrades. Of course, you pick some site, say upgrade, it upgrades modules, you said okay, then you pick next site, check what is needed to be upgraded, and so on and so on. So, in Agile system, you first have to migrate the site into the Agile. There is a procedure how it's done, but basically you ensure that your platform has all the modules. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you just import you create the site, import the database, and let the magic rolls. The whole system of Barracuda is driven by a lot of drush and a lot of scripts in the background. So when you're importing site, it does all the checks, and it even you know, when you have only one site in the Drupal, you have everything under sites, Drupal, sites default, then themes, modules, and everything else. In the case of the Agile and platforms, you actually have sites / site name / modules, themes, and everything else. So files are also inside that story. So if you have any reference in your content about the files, media files, or anything that you upload to, your site actually would be broke. But that's not the case. Thanks to the drush and some drush modules, it goes through all the tables that may contain such content and tries to fix the links to your new one. So essentially in about 8 steps, or depending on the complexity of the site, of course, it may last from 2-3 minutes up to 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. But that's the time you need to move any Drupal site into Agile. Once it is in Agile, you don't actually update modules. You build a new platform. And that is what you may have seen here. When you take a look here, you can see, for instance, the Drupal. It's all the same for the other platforms. You can see that we have at the same time Drupal 6.34 and 6.35. So we do have some sites under this previous version of Drupal, and this is the new version of the Drupal. So essentially, Agile handles the sites and the upgrades the way that you actually move the site from one platform to another. It is even possible to move something from, for instance, you can move site from distribution to the plain Drupal, or from the Drupal to the distribution. It is not a problem. Of course, you have to know what you need. You need the modules, you need the configurations, you need the things that you actually need. But you already know that. I mean, if you're building sites or maintaining Drupal sites, you already know that. So at the end, what does this whole system bring to you? The first thing is that Agir is built as a very secure and optimized system. Depending on the amount of memory you're buying, it will adopt itself on the installation, so it will handle, so for instance, if you have 1 gigabyte, it will fit all the variables for you that your instance is working under not so much pressure. For instance, my DigitalOcean instance was working around 600 to 700 megabyte of the gigabyte I had available. So I didn't have some kind of peaks in my production, and of course sites are not too much visited, but still it is working. I mean, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about running on chip. So that means that in the case of the Agir, actually, you get a built server that is built for you by experts. Those two guys are more than 10 years in a sysadmin business, so they know the stuff. It is very highly optimized with PHP, with MySQL and everything else. And it is very, very performant, and at the same time it adopts to the kind of the system that you purchase. So if you're looking to improve your Drupal hosting and not to burden your budget with the expenses you don't actually need, I mean, if you look at the rack space, the entry point is around $100 or something, not to mention if you want it managed. If you want it managed by some sysadmins, then you have to stretch quite a lot. I mean, on a monthly basis, not on a yearly basis. And for that kind of money, you really have to have some very good clients that are paying you a lot, so you can cover that. Actually, this system tries to be as foolproof as possible. So you must have some sort of knowledge. You have the community support. It's a Drupal community. There are people just like the others who want to have a good server on chip. And what I've done personally with this thing, I've managed to fit in plain PHP. I've managed to run, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. That's the CMS system of the J word with double O and everything else. Maybe it's not allowed word here, like Joomla. So even that Joomla was running fine and optimized, very, very responsive. So I really, I've done that. After that small DigitalOcean instance, I've run into the Hetzner, which you can get a server for 30 euros a month. So, and bear with me, for the 30 euros a month, you get 32 gigabytes, you have 2 times 3 terabyte storage, you have i7 something processor like 3770, that doesn't mean a thing to me. It's i7, it's 8 core, it's a good one. So for that kind of money, you may surprise yourself that you may be maybe stronger than your local hosting company that is doing the same. And at the same time, what they say, you're standing on the shoulders of giants. So you're standing on the shoulders of the guys who really know how to do that and are glad to offer that. I wanted to make some practical demonstrations, but we have a time constraint, we have net constraint, so maybe for some future thing we will try to make it a workshop that lasts for 2 or 3 hours, and then we can produce the site and everything else. I will try to make one site quickly, for instance. Let's say sites. Oh, that's it. add a new site. Let's see how it's working actually. Okay. So that is some domain of mine where I put many things. So I choose the domain name, I choose the client. You may have clients that have few sites. So if you have a client who has few sites, when you allow them access, they have access to the server only to the sites they're allowed to upload or whatever. You change the distribution. We may go for vanilla standard. When you use that, you get the Drupal. You have development, production, staging, previous version, current version. Or we may use some distribution like Monopoly, for instance. Here it is. Okay, I want to use Monopoly. I don't need anything fancy, and let's make it. So it is added as a task, and we may look here how the task is, or how the tasks are progressing. So here it is in the queue. When it starts working, there will be a little something there spinning, and while we wait that, I'm open to your questions. Come on.
You already discussed about the migration from a standard Drupal to Azure. I'm not sure if Octopus did some change in the script, because I tried a migration of a vanilla Drupal 7 with a lot of modules, nothing fancy, and it was quite complicated to do it with that. Actually, the scripts Drush didn't handle some of the things with some very unfriendly errors. So do you have any experience if there is a difference between the standard Azure and this Octopus optimized version? Because I had a feeling that they're doing something more.
I think I didn't work with the Azure only. Here it is. So it started. I didn't work with Azure alone, because this is like Azure on steroids. It is packed up with Drush extensions that do a lot of heavy lifting beside what the provision and hosting are actually doing. Actually, these scripts from Barracuda, as I said, they even get into the content fixing the things.
That was the problem at the end.
They also done one very important thing. Professionals maybe know that, but some that didn't cope with it, it is called registry rebuild. So unless you do the registry rebuild, your classes and functions stay tied to some previous locations, and as such cannot be found. With this system, it goes to all things checking, one by one, everything, so it must be in perfect order.
Second question.
And that is
Did you try import from a backup and migrate backup?
I tried, but I didn't like at all how it's working. But on the other hand, there are actually, when we go to some individual site, like...
yeah, but or usually the client gives you, okay, this is our current version, and usually it's backup and migrate. Somehow this module is popular for standard Drupal, and then
yes,
you're left with something which is not even a running Drupal installation. So how do you transfer?
Actually, backup and migration is included inside for regular backups, and it performs on the regular backups, and it's even, it's maybe even suggested that you should use that instead of doing it manually. Unfortunately or fortunately, I prefer doing it manually, like I will do that. So that is why I don't have much experience with the backup. I mean, I tried it, I didn't like it, and just went away for me. But on the Omega side, there are really 8 steps needed to move any site into the Azure. And if one understands what it's doing, then it's not a problem. So it just goes smoothly. But the truth is, this is the complex system. and you cannot reasonably expect it to be too much friendly. Because if it would be friendly, then it would be like spending too much things that actual professionals don't need. So if you're intending to be in a hosting business or run a few sites in this manner, then that shouldn't be a really problem. Or maybe you should find someone who really knows the stuff. But they are really helpful, really. I mean,
yeah, but it's different. I thought that it's the standard AV, so now I have to try with also.
The thing is, you really need to have a server, like VPS or dedicated.
No problem.
When
I'll
you-
make 10 tomorrow.
Yes, and even on a DigitalOcean, they charge you by hour. I mean, most are charging by hour. So you can play for 2 days, and then that will cost you like $0.50 or $1. So anyone actually can afford that.
I totally agree.
Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned when installing VPS or when installing operating system, there is an option 32-bit or 64-bit. I think that if there is such an option, we should always go with 64-bit. Why sometimes we may prefer 32-bit?
Yes. I told you that in the beginning. The actual problem is that 60-bit software applications, distributions, Linux distributions have, so if you're 64-bit, you have a larger footprint, memory footprint. And that, if you have a 1 gigabit memory, it is very small place to fit everything, to fit caching, servers, and everything else. So, if there is a 200 megabyte difference on 1 gigabyte, that's huge. But if you're having like 4 gigabytes, then it's not that huge. If you're crossing the 4 gigabyte boundary, which limits you for the 32 or 64, then you have no option. You have to be 64, but if you have more than 4 gigabytes, you don't care about that because it is way below. I mean, the system itself consumes about 500, actually less than that. But the rest of the memory is used as a cache. So the more memory you have, the more efficient your cache is, the more the better your machine works. So that's the only reason. I'm not saying that 32 is better than 64. No, it's just a matter of if you want to have more performance, under 4 gigabytes, you will not receive anything special from 64 bits, but your memory for the caching will be smaller, and that's the only reason I would bring. So let's see what. I'll stop it a bit. So here is, when you look at one side, here is what you can see. These are the operations. Those, of course, you recognize that would be done in the command line. But this gives you a nice administration. So even your users, owners of the site, can log in and can see some of the things. I mean, it's a question if you wish to allow them to. But here are the basic things. Something like make a backup, delete a backup, clone a site. That's very important in the Agile system. You may reset passwords, flash caches. You may perform migrate, as you can see, and the other things. If you wish to visit it, okay. Let's see what we have done. So here it is. And the basic thing is, if you, right, so I've used the latest one. So if we use the previous one, then we would migrate the site to something else. And so he gives you now the option to change the username, to change the password, and that's about it. You know, you can use it to. You see, I mean, it is very hard now to see if it is fast, because really the internet connection is slower than it is operating. But I assure you that it is working quite fine. And then when you wish to let us try to do the silly thing. I mean, it is silly, but nevertheless. I will try to clone this site. as you can see here, they say first read the, I mean, this reads like best recipes for disaster, but it's on the opposite. What you shouldn't do when you're trying to move the site. So you may use this cloning to move the site from one platform to the other, and when you're moving, in the process of verification, it gives you the warnings. What would happen if you wish to do that? So we have 4 errors, and that is why it is preventing us to move it somewhere else. It did took a lot of time because the panoply is a complex distribution and offers a lot of things. But essentially, when you wish to move, for instance, if I choose to build it in 7.34, then I would upgrade the site by the way of moving it to a new platform. And that's the way you do it. So what does BOA works for you? You build a site and it's alive. Now comes the new Drupal, like from 34 to 36, and you wish to move it. After some time, when the guys check everything, fit everything, they produce a new platform for you, and you get a notification by mail. New platforms are available. All you have to do is to go to terminal, type Barracuda, up, stable, enter. That's it. It fetches the new system updates, it fetches the new platforms, and the new platforms appear on the list. When they appear on the list, the best recipe for disaster is the following. Please, don't just move the site. First, clone and check if it is working. If it is working, then you may, that working version, pronounce the live version, and the old version goes to the backup, and then you delete it. So that is the way you move sites. So you move site from the platform to the platform, and it updates in process. Are there any more questions?
I have tried to upgrade Drupal site with brush up, and sometimes it happens that the site is broken.
Yes.
For some reason. I think that the team that provides this software, probably they screen these kinds of problems, and then they don't allow to make an upgrade that will break the site.
That's here.
Yeah.
Warnings, errors. If there are errors, like incompatible versions, they will say error and refuse
And
to
that
do
link at the end, compare platform, actually opens a table which tells you everything.
Why
Yeah,
this?
here. So,
And this is when you said, your current version is 1.4 and you wish to downgrade to 1.3. No can do that. It simply refuses to do so. I mean, if you really want to do that, you'll definitely go. It's not going to be touched.
No, but
So,
for the upgrading, probably if you upgrade and the new site is broken, it happens sometimes. Do they prevent the upgrade if there are such problems with Drupal? Because they are definitely...
yes, you're asking a good question. Actually, that is why there is cloning process. So you don't move the site like killing the previous version. You clone. Your live site is live,
Okay.
and it stays live.
You build a new one, if the new one is okay, then you remove the old
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yes.
it's
So
all
that's the kind of the workflow. When you're satisfied with the clone version, when everything is working, you're checking box, links, media, everything is okay. When you're satisfied, then you say, okay, this one is good, the other one. So actually, the suggested way is to put a prefix. So if you have site like skopje.mk, then you make test.skopje.mk, and you working on it. And when you see, okay, everything is fine, you say to client, please test the site if everything works for you. Client says, okay, tested it, it seems fine to me. Then you perform the migrate site. But you don't do or choose anything but the name. And so when the only thing you change is name, then all it does is just change the DNS and that's it. So you change it first that www Skopje, it changed to foo. Then you change test.skopje to www Skopje, and you do with the foo whatever you want. Actually, when you delete it, it is automatically backup and stored for some times. And then you may choose delete backups. In case you didn't listen and choose to move directly, and you break something, you have backups that are done for you automatically. But they don't guarantee that that is utterly safe. Usually it is, because it backups the code, backups the database.
From the time that you backed up until the time that you make an update, maybe you may lose some data or something.
No.
Okay.
In the minute you say migrate to the new platform,
They make it better.
it automatically makes the backup. So if you fail, you may, there are some edge cases where that doesn't work, actually. I mean, I don't remember now, but it did happen to me as well, because I was like, come on, it will work.
No.
But usually it works. But when it doesn't work, then you're figuring it out. Okay?
Do you know if Azure, do you know how it knows which versions of which module is installed on the site? Because, little side thing, we have our own like platform SH stuff, and I don't search for something that like automatically closes things. But what I would like to know is like which modules are installed, which module versions are installed on all my sites. And I see that, and I was wondering like how, where does Azure knows that from? And
Yes.
could you maybe connect it to existing Drupal sites without actually using Azure and just using that?
No, the thing is the following. When you have a new platform, remember, you actually don't wish to mess up with the site. You want to do with the platform. So you don't make some sort of the modules taking. You use the platform. The platform is the way of thinking. So when you, for instance, as I told you, you have three options. You may use Drupal as it is, you may use distribution, and you may build your own platform. For instance, you build a few sites that uses mostly the same modules. Okay, you build your platform, like Schnitzel platform 7 point I don't know what, and in the process of the verifying the platform, it goes through the modules and remembers them in the database in some table.
But do you know how it does that? It goes through the modules. How does it do that?
I didn't just dive in, but basically you may
I can add two things.
Yeah.
First, what's interesting is Azure is preventing installation of additional modules outside the platform. So if you go to this site and try to install a module the usual Drupal way, you get a warning that you should use platforms. And the second part, it uses some Drush plugin that enumerates everything and checks every data, even going to the Drupal repo. I don't know where exactly the code is, but when I was migrating, I've seen it.
Okay.
So it's like, this is my custom platform, the same case. I had built something that was built on some version of the Pros point, it was adjusted, and I didn't want to
Packages.
move it for the new platform. And that is when you, so this is the name of my custom platform, this is where the platform lies, and when you click it at the packages, like this, here are releases and what's all of that. So you see this PP1.
Using the info files from the
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have info file.
If you
in the
use
modules.
If you use Git submodules, you don't have.
If you use Drush, there is a Drush command PM modules, I think, which lists all the installed modules and their versions. So they can get the version, and this command probably gets it from database.
They're mixing. I had problems.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I I know that, but I have 200 sites and I want to know which version.
If you want to build another site which uses the same modules with the same versions, then you can build a make file with this information. Probably they do it like this, probably they don't.
Yeah,
do it like
they're
this, but-
scraping. So I had a problem. I
Yeah.
need to delete the platform. Actually, you just delete everything, and down I had to find these .drush files when they catch things.
Okay, but you cannot just put Agir to some Drupal site and then
No.
it. Okay. Yeah.
No. The whole idea is not here. It's not idea about the Agir. It's even lower than that.
Okay.
This BOA platform actually uses self-healing. So, for instance, you say, those guys are not smart enough. I will trick them, and then you go into the system and change something. There are healing processes which heals you and prevent for someone taking control of your own system or you breaking the system. So it is monitoring some things on a minute, some things on a 5 minutes, some things on an hour, and some things on the day. So if it passes the 24 hour, something like it's about maybe 5 in the morning, it just, for instance, if you changed something that shouldn't be changed, it heals itself. But it doesn't do it always. There are some areas, for instance, that is how I put inside the Joomla. I've produced my Nginx profile and put it in the safe place. Before that, I put it in some place where I thought it would be okay. No, it's not okay. It was killed in a few minutes. So you may override some things, but you must have the real place to do that, and that's documented actually. It's written in the documentation. So BOA is actually the whole server. I mean, Agir also looks for the server to own, but this is the completely tuned server that actually heals itself. So it's not the procedure. It's the procedures that are done on a daily basis, on a permanent basis. That prevents you from the breaking sites, keeps your client safe, and everything else.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that would be all. Thank you for your attention. If you would have any kind of a question, you have my data on the Drupal camp site, so please feel free to contact me in case you're willing to try something like this. Thank you.